Welcome in, little Warchant TV, warchant.com, and some transfer portal talk. Good to have you along. I'm Jeff Cameron. There you see Aslan Hajavendi. There you see Ira Shafel, and of course, Gene Williams, founder and administrator of warchant.com. And we have actually a little bit more meat on the bone here, guys, than I thought before we get moving into this and looking at the names that came in and were here in the spring and those that have left the program. We should remind everybody to, as always, like and subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell, you share, you celebrate it, you let everybody you know on planet Earth about us and how to find this great content. Like and subscribe to Warchant TV and warchant.com, of course. All right, so transfer portal review, the subject matter at hand here. And Gina, I love this. I'm going to start with you. We could talk about the 10 transfer additions now that we saw them all through spring football, right? And when you go through and you name them one by one, you feel pretty good about what you brought in, and then you look at alongside the 16 that left, and you feel pretty good about what left as well to some degree. So let's go with this. Bless Harris, Caden Lyles, Johnny Wilson, Micah Pittman, Greedy Vance, Deuce Spann, Tatum Bethune. You can see it up there on your screen, guys. Jared Verse, Winston Wright, Trey Benson. I think I have a suspicion who we're going to select, but of that group, who are you most excited about now that we all watched spring and saw these young men perform?
Well, I think first I want to say, it's amazing when you look at the pluses and minuses. I mean, we'll talk about some of the guys maybe that left in a little bit, but I mean, every guy on this list, I would say outside of Deuce Spann, who I think is a little bit more of a project, maybe not immediate impact, but you see the size, the speed, you think he could be definitely good in a year or two. But I mean, those 9 other guys are either going to compete for a starting position, or at the very least provide you some quality depth. When you have that kind of 9 players, I mean, there's not that many players to start. I mean, that's a huge addition right there. It's hard to pick just one. I think in the long term, we're going to look back and say Jared Verse is going to be the guy. I think he could potentially be this year, maybe like a second team ACC, and maybe by next year he's an All-American. Maybe he's that good. But I want to say, if I had to pick one guy, and I've just been on this guy, I fell in love with him, watching him in practice and in that spring game, and that's Trey Benson. He was the one guy when that transfer happened. I got to say, I thought, you might have made a mistake there. I don't know about a guy coming off an injury, a 3-star guy from Oregon. Come on, man. They got plenty of running backs. I didn't see that. And you see this guy, the size, the speed, and the elusiveness. That play made in the spring game, we did a little dipsy-do there, made a guy miss in the backfield, and then gutted down and then doesn't go out of bounds, lowers that shoulder, gets a few extra yards on the sideline. I love the mentality. I love the athleticism. I think he could be a difference maker at the position, so I really like Trey Benson.
So, Aslan, I want to ask you real quick before we get to you, Ira. I'm curious, is there somebody off the wall on this list that nobody would be expected to pick that you are excited about? Is there anybody, like, if you want to zig here instead of going with Gene Zag, who would you go with here?
I should represent Corey in the podcast and hype up Johnny Wilson a little bit, but I'm not quite buying into the Johnny Wilson stock at this point right now. I mean, for me, it's Micah Pittman. I don't think that's really zagging. Just looking at that list again, I think we all feel really good about Jared Verse. Micah Pittman's the other guy to me that just feels like day one instant impact. I know we throwing around the word depth, but this team needs more than depth, man. They need difference makers. It just feels like Micah Pittman's a guy that can make a difference. So could Jared Verse. The rest of those guys, I think, is TBD. So,
Ira?
I think when you talk about impact play to play over the course of the season, it might be Tatum Bethune at linebacker. I think Jared Verse is going to make more splash plays. He's going to have sacks, maybe some strip sacks, some things like that, some big plays. And Micah Pittman's going to be a key guy as well. But I wonder if Tatum Bethune, what he brings at that linebacker position. He transferred in from UCF, had over 100 tackles last year, and you see why. When we watched him in the spring, he's a guy that's got very good instincts, is very smart, good communicator. This is a defense that brings back a lot of players that played a lot of football, but I think Tatum Bethune could be a guy that takes that defense to the next level.
It's interesting. You took my guy there, Ira. You know how concerned I've been about linebacker for so long. So when Tatum Bethune not only showed up with all that experience, all that savvy and instinct, he's also a physical presence, and he's a smart guy to lead the defense. I'm really excited about him. But I'm going to give you one right now that none of the guys selected. It's because of my overriding fears, and really all of our overriding fears for years now, and that is the offensive line. And I think they brought in originally Bless Harris to come in and be a backup. I think he's going to start, guys. I think they're going to need Bless Harris to start. When we talk about the importance of the position at offensive line, Bless Harris really surprised me. He's a little more athletic than I realized. He's obviously a big man. They're going to need his help, and I think they were hoping to bring in another offensive lineman in the transfer portal just to provide some depth, because he was a depth piece that's going to have to start. I don't think some of the guys they thought would take that step forward in spring actually did, and because they didn't, Bless will have to start. So I think he's another guy that you could circle and say he's going to be a key addition for them in the transfer portal, and a guy that I think does end up being quite valuable up front.
Well, and I think, to Gene's point, that gets you closer to that number of maybe 8 or 9 guys from this group that are starting. I think conservatively it's going to be 6 to 7. And when you brought in 10 guys overall, if 6 or 7 or 8 or more end up starting, you have to consider this group a real success overall.
Are there any of the guys that have departed through the transfer portal, 16 players in all, that you think will make a significant impact on their future teams, and or more importantly, do they leave a dearth of talent and depth here at Florida State? I will present to you maybe 2 guys that I think Florida State will miss in some capacity. We could debate how much, but anybody's free to chime in here. I would go Jarvis Brownlee, very physical in the run game. He was an average cover corner to below average cover corner, but he played with great tenacity and toughness. And then I think maybe, and again, a depth piece, Gene, and you and I were talking off the air a little bit here. I don't want to steal you, but Kweishan Fuller is a guy that I was kind of sad to see go, just because I always thought there was potential with him.
Yeah, that's pretty much it right there. That's the thing. You look at this, and I think Florida State's really lucky. You look at a lot of the Power 5 schools. They get some guys they want in the transfer portal, and they lose some guys. I think Florida State's been very lucky the last couple of years, because you look at the list, you're like, you guys go, it's all right. It'd be nice to have a little depth here and there with Kweishan, with Brownlee, and I don't know, everybody looks at Brownlee from the Jacksonville State game, but on the whole, I don't know if he would have started or not, but he's definitely an experienced guy. He's got some skills. I think he might be a change of scenery, might be good for him. I could see him actually doing pretty well at a different location to answer your original question, Jeff. But on the whole, man, I think they hit it out of the park when you compare the losses and the gains in this transfer class.
Yeah, just to add on, I think a lot of people outside of Tallahassee or outside of the fan base or media group look at that number of transfers and say, man, they had 15, 16 guys transfer since last season. What's going on in Tallahassee? And the reality is that we know, and most people watching this know, most of those guys were guys that were either signed in Willie's transition class, Willie Taggart's transition class, or Mike Norvell's transition class. The guys that were not really vetted all that well, probably in many cases didn't belong at Florida State. They've seen that. The coaches have seen that. And they're going to go try to, latch on at another school. Now, as you said, Kweishan Fuller goes to Maryland. That's a pretty comparable move. And Jarvis Brownlee goes to Louisville. It's a pretty comparable move. FSU actually traded for Greedy Vance. Maybe an unofficial trade there. But yeah, I think it's, for the most part, most of those guys would not have helped you this season. And the guys you brought in certainly should.
2-part question here. Aslan, I want you to chime in on this one, because I am kind of curious what we think, if whether or not Mike Norvell and staff, who've done a good job of evaluating in the transfer portal, they've missed on some guys, but on the whole, it looks like they've done a good job of evaluating, projecting what a guy will be when they get here and filling needs. But with the May 1st deadline passed, it's looking like FSU might have an extra scholarship or 2. Did Mike Norvell make a mistake not being more aggressive in the portal earlier, in your mind?
Who was out there, Jeff? Who ended up committing that you thought, man, we really missed the boat on that sort of guy? And at this point, why add pieces that you simply think are just going to give you depth if they're not going to be an instant sort of impact when you have to use that small number on the portal?
Well, I think, fellas, that answers the other part of that question, which is what else can they go out and get? Now, we might be able to identify needs. Like, we might say they definitely need another receiver. They definitely need another offensive lineman. They may need another rush in. We could say those things, but I don't want to take just to take, and it doesn't look like they do either. So when you take a look at this thing every day, is there a guy out there that you're seeing right now that you think, I don't know why they're not going after him? Because, frankly, I don't think there is somebody sitting out there. The one guy they went after that they thought they were going to get, and it certainly looked like they were going to get, had a bunch of unforeseen circumstances happen. Unfortunately, they didn't get him. But I don't know that there's anybody really to go out there and grab.
Well, Michael Langston has a list. I think there's 4 guys right now that you could see down the premium recruiting board. He's looking at a couple of them are offensive linemen.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, and I think we're all just jaded from what's happened the last 5, 6 years, how bad that thing is. I'm just grab anybody, any big body, just get them in there. Is it a desperate need, especially like you said, a Bless Harris and Caden Lyles pan out? Is it really a huge need? No, but I just think the history of that position, the injuries, I'll take them. But at the end of the day, I'd say I think there's defensive line, offensive line, linebacker, wide receiver. You take the best of. You got one more scholarship to get a transfer in. Figure out who's the best guy, bring him in. I know they're still looking at some corners. I don't really understand that as much, but I mean, if they think a guy can come in here and make an impact, I suppose I'm fine with it. I just don't want to see a situation where we're sitting here in August and, oh, yeah, a couple walk-ons got scholarships. I'd hate to see that happen. I'd rather go to someone who's going to help you right now.
Well, just to recap, I think the last time I checked, I think they're probably based on the kids that they've got coming in this summer, the high school signees or 4 high school signees, they're probably around 81, 82 scholarships. You get a total of 85. There also might be 1 or 2 that they, Woody, the offensive lineman, who whether or not he gets eligible, and then still, our man Dustin Hill out there. But you've got a couple options that could get you to 83 or 84 scholarships. So maybe you only have 1 or 2 spots left. If that's the case, I think the priority is still offensive line. And if there's not a great pass rusher out there, they seem pretty determined to get a corner. And as Gene said, the corner out of ULM is a guy that they've officially offered. He's coming for an official visit. And, he's an impressive guy. I think what that tells you, I don't think a lot of us thought corner was going to be one of the positions they use those last few spots on. But I think it tells you they don't feel great about the corner opposite of Amarian Cooper. And so if they can get somebody else out there who can be a top line corner, they're not going to go get a corner just to fill depth. But if they can get somebody that they think really makes them better at that spot on a defense that should be really good overall, it seems like that's something that they want to make a priority of. So I think right now it seems like they're focused on cornerback and offensive line.
It also tells you that for all the good that Renardo Green did this spring, buying in, kind of changing our opinion of what he's possibly capable of, they're not so sure that he is a starting corner. He may be, and he may continue to emerge, but it tells you that they'd like a little bit more competition there and a little bit more depth of competition there. Because, yeah, obviously they feel good about Duke Cooper, but I don't know that they're real certain what they have on the other side.
Yeah, and I think when it comes down to the positions on like offensive line, for example, we all know they could get better there, but are they going to be able to find somebody better than what they have? The guy that's at Charlotte, his name escapes me. There's a transfer target that's from Charlotte that Florida State, that Alex Atkins is familiar with and Florida State's talking to. He's a guy that has started 3 years at tackle for Charlotte, but he's 6'2". I guess Alex Atkins would know better than any of us whether or not he translates as a possible tackle at Florida State, or maybe he could be a guard. But yeah, there aren't a ton of really good offensive. There you go. Thanks, Aslan. Dimitri Emmanuel is in the portal as a grad transfer, and he's, was a solid player at Charlotte, but I don't know that he projects as a tackle at the Power 5 level, or if maybe he could play a guard.
His numbers suggest he's better in pass pro than in run blocking. I think he's a depth piece, basically, which is fine. You need to have quality depth, and I'm not real sure Florida State has that right now. So even if he were to come in and just be kind of a safety measure, like you said, I'll trust Alex Atkins on this one. If they can get him to come in and be a 6th or a 7th guy off the bench, then maybe it's worth it. I would say this, to kind of put a ribbon on all this, guys, the talk of what was gained and what was lost in the portal, whom we're excited about, who we still have questions about, and what left. I think Florida State is on the plus side of the ledger here. I think at the end of the day, we can say that the transfer additions are all guys. I mean, we didn't mention everybody here. You can't go through everybody, but between Tatum Bethune and Jared Verse and the potential for Caden Lyles to be a starting offensive lineman along with Bless Harris, Micah Pittman, who we're all excited about. We'll see what Johnny Wilson and Winston Wright are. Winston Wright's a guy that we would have felt really good about had he not unfortunately gotten into a car accident. I mean, that's a whole lot of hits. And we'll see, Greedy Vance is going to play. We know he's going to play. Deuce Spann in maybe 2 years. He's a physical freak to look at, to watch run. He still needs to be more polished. And Johnny Wilson's a mismatch if he can just catch the ball consistently. So I think these are all huge additions for this program. And obviously we mentioned Trey Benson at the outset. So I think he's going to be your starting running back, by the way. So, yeah, I'd say to kind of put a ribbon on this thing, Florida State has won in the transfer portal again. It's not the first time. They've done it again.
I do think the hit rate is better than last year. Last year, you had the splash guys, Jermaine Johnson, and a couple other guys, but there were a lot of misses as well. This group doesn't seem to have the number of misses.
Well, isn't this also a function of the staff getting more comfortable and having time post-COVID to really go out and evaluate more guys? I think they, especially that very first transfer class, was not great, and I think they just had to rush to fill bodies. It was so bad, but I think now this staff, the continuity, they're able to get out there and really do their proper evaluation and vet these guys. So, yeah, you're right, Ira. I think we'll see. Obviously, ultimately, the judge will be this season how these guys perform. But, yeah, at least at this point, man, it looks like they've really hit a home run with this transfer class. I
think it's a good way to end it right there. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you listen to Wake Up Warchant, Seminole Headlines, and The Jeff Cameron Show, and all of the other offerings that we have here on Warchant TV and warchant.com. Like and subscribe so others that are like-minded and enjoy the content can find it as well. We'll be on board for Seminole Headlines tomorrow. Looking forward to it. And don't forget, Wake Up Warchant as well on The Jeff Cameron Show. All right, so Gene Williams, Aslan Ashavandi, and Ira Shafel. I'm Jeff Cameron. That's it. That's all. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again real soon.